Hey friends, this is the last week of the Every Bit Counts challenge. I'm just cleaning up some jars so that they can go into my basement pantry. And we have been making meals in a jar this week. I hope everyone is enjoying this challenge. I know I'm kind of ready for a little bit of a break, even if it's one day. For September, I will probably be sneaking in whatever preservation I can get. We're also going to be participating in another challenge, and also we'll be getting back into some normalcy, weekly routines that we haven't been doing over the summer. Stay tuned for all the new videos that you're gonna get to see soon. Hi friend, we are getting ready for another day in the kitchen. We are going to be canning shelf-stable meals for the next few days at least. It's kitchen time. We have some London broils to make some beef meals with, and we have a few packets of chicken that I pulled out of my freezer and defrosted so that we can make some chicken meals. I guess let's start with the beef because that has the least amount of ingredients. The chicken meals have a little bit more to them than our beef does because we are gonna make shredded Chipotle beef for tacos. We're gonna chop up our onions first, and it says into slices, so that would make sense. I definitely think for tacos, slices would be a good idea. Let's go with that. We have our sliced onions, and let's get our beef cut up. We have 3.5 pounds. I am going to do one full recipe and then a half of the recipe because it calls for 2 pounds of meat, so I'll be able to do the 3 pounds. It says we're gonna just trim these into 2-inch chunks, so I'm just gonna make some strips to start, and then probably just cut some of these in half and the bigger ones in thirds. Perfect. I think what I'm gonna do too is I might put these in pints. So once you have your clean jars, we're just gonna put some onions in here. And then we're gonna start putting our chunks of meat in. I'm excited to try this because my daughter requested that we have a taco night each week. And normally I just would make ground beef for tacos. So my boys don't like ground beef, so I plan to also use shredded chicken as an alternative. But I think this would be a nice change to just having ground beef as a beef option when we do tacos. Our school year has started, and we will be working on getting our cooking kitchen routine back in place. Right now we wing it each day based on what's going on and how much time we have, but the days are going to be getting much more structured. It will be just easier to follow a routine. For me, the summers are a time to be spontaneous and to go with the flow and not worry about our schedule, not worry about plans. We can finish projects, I can catch up on chores, I can work in the garden and do my canning as it comes in. I don't have to plan my days for it. I like that relaxed feeling of the summer. But in the school season, we need our structure because that helps us to know how to get our days done, know when it's okay to add something else in, or if that's just going to be too much. It's nice to have the routine when your days are super busy. It makes things easier to accomplish. That is why I love the lack of routine in summer, but I love the structure of routine during our school year. All right, so we're gonna add our spices. We need salt, oregano, garlic, cilantro, and chili peppers in adobo. Each jar is gonna take a half a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of oregano, 1 minced clove of garlic in each jar. If you're not chopping up individually your cloves, you can use jarred minced garlic and it would be a half a teaspoon. It calls for a half cup total for 4 pints of fresh cilantro. I do not have fresh cilantro right now in my garden, so I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of dried. If you don't have cilantro at all, you can use parsley, or if you don't like cilantro, you can use parsley. I do not have chipotle peppers in adobo. I'm just going to put in a little smidge of my Better Than Bouillon adobo. This has been great. I have been using this in a lot of canning recipes. This has really worked out good. It's so flavorful. And again, if you don't have that and you want to make this recipe, you could just sprinkle some paprika in. You're just adding seasonings, just flavors. That's all this is. So put your spices in. These are the ones that are suggested or similar to. And then we are going to top off with hot broth. So right now I'm going to get my water started and I'm going to make some hot broth. And I'm also going to add in a smidge of the beef broth concentrate because we're just going to mix that with the hot water. It has a really good flavor. I already have this, but if you didn't have this, you could definitely just use beef broth or use beef broth if that is what you prefer. For me, I have to buy the beef bones to make the beef broth, and I have done that. I do have jars in my basement, but I would rather use those for soups and rice and our meals than to just flavor the meat in these jars. Our water is boiling. We want a 1-inch head space. So we're just gonna go up a little bit and then we'll debubble. Yep, perfect. All right, we're just gonna clean the top of our lids on and get it in the canner. These aren't really sticky, just a little bit of seasoning on the tops. So this is gonna be really easy to clean up. Okay, so Chipotle beef for tacos. Okay, we're gonna get these in the pressure canner for 1 hour and 15 minutes or 75 minutes. We are now on to making chicken curry. We're gonna triple the recipe. It's in the all new ball canning cookbook. And we're gonna triple that recipe. We're gonna have 6 quarts from this. One recipe calls for 2 pounds. I have about 6 pounds here, so we're just gonna chop it up and disperse it evenly throughout. I think this is gonna come out to be like 1 chicken breast per jar. There are 2 breasts in each one, so as long as they're similar size, otherwise I can just add to the jar that has a smaller chicken breast. So I'm just cutting these up into little bite-sized chunks. All right, we cleaned up from the chicken, our hands are clean, the chicken is in the jars. Now we're gonna get to the next ingredients, which are vegetables. And for this, we're gonna need a total of 3 cups of diced onion, because we have 6 jars. These onions are very potent. Usually if I have them in the fridge, it doesn't bother me. But I took this out this morning because I knew I was going to need it. It's late afternoon, so it is nice and warm and fierce now. These meals are gonna be great because they're gonna be so easy to just heat up when we've had a really busy day, or even just using as a nice weekend lunch when we are having a lazy weekend day. So just like freezer meals, I'm spending 1 time to make this meal and I'm gonna get 6 meals out of it instead of having to make this dinner or lunch 6 times. Really. Woo! So this is a 1/4 cup and a 1/2 cup. So 1/2 cup of diced onions into each jar. Ooh, I think I need to go put on some sad music so that it looks like I'm crying for more than just onions. Oh, 1 more jar. We actually have onions from earlier that I sliced. I washed these before we got started, and I am just going to chop it up really good. And if you have these Scrub Daddy sponges, they scrub so good when you do potatoes. You can see that there's bald spots on my potatoes. So I'm not going to bother to peel because I know that these are scrubbed very clean and the peel is super thin. It isn't going to make a difference in our meal. We want 1/2 cup in each jar. Put a couple small pieces dispersed through those jars so that I didn't have to waste the little piece that I had left. Now we're gonna add in some diced tomatoes. Each jar is gonna get 1/2 cup. And you'll notice I am not using tomatoes from my garden. I just don't like to be bothered making diced tomatoes. I think it's a kind of tedious process that I'd rather save the tomatoes in my garden for sauces. We are gonna put a 1/4 cup of raisins in each jar. I think each box is about a 1/4 cup, just a little bit under. I'm just gonna put a box of each in here because this is what I have other than the golden raisins, which I don't want to open this up for it if it doesn't call for it. I do remember a recipe that called for golden raisins, and now I don't remember what it was. But this is not the one, and these are what I have. I think the raisins taste really good in this. They don't stay dried up. If you're thinking, oh, I don't want to eat dried fruit in my food, maybe try the recipe with it cooked first, and then if you don't like it, just take them out. But they taste delicious cooked in. And we're on to our spices. We're going to use salt, garam masala, curry powder, and parsley. We're going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. We're using parsley instead of cilantro because that is what I used last time, and we really liked this, so I'm just going to stick to that. 1/2 teaspoon of curry powder, and then 1/2 teaspoon of garam masala blend in each jar. Not positive if that's how you say it. And we did not have this last time, but it reminds me of fall if you've never had it. I'm gonna give it a try because I think it's gonna taste delicious. And if it doesn't, we're out of luck because we had 6 jars to eat. And then we are gonna top everything with chicken broth. So I'm gonna go get my kettle cooking hot water and get some Better Than Bouillon chicken broth seasoning in each jar, about a teaspoon. Oh, Costco needs to put this on sale because I need more. Okay, our water is boiling hot, so we are going to fill our jars to 1 inch headspace and then debubble and adjust our headspace. Okay, we're gonna clean the rims. Okay, we're gonna get these in the pressure canner, and it is gonna process for 1.5 hours or 90 minutes. Hey friends, we are working on hearty chicken stew, and we're gonna double the recipe so that we can get 12 pints, because for the average chicken pot pie, it'll take 2 pints and they don't have it marked as giving you the option of putting it in quarts. I don't see why you couldn't, but I also think it is kind of odd that they don't have that option. I'm just gonna stick with the pints because sometimes it might be nice to just have it as a lunch. So I'm chopping up these chicken thighs that I just got. Costco for the win. Again, I'm doubling the recipe. I need 6 cups of chicken. We are working on filling this. It is a 2-cup measuring glass. It's ready for fall. I am so ready for fall, and making these canned meals has really, I don't know, heightened that want for them. When I went to Costco 2 days ago, they had pumpkin pie and pumpkin streusel muffins, so I grabbed those, and it just brings that fall feeling in the air when you're just like, oh, I've had enough of summer, now I'm good, let's move on. My garden had slowed down a bit, and a lot of the tomato plants and peppers had given a huge rush for a couple weeks, and then last week I got breaks. I kept getting through the stuff that was in my fridge and getting all the odd end things dealt with so that they didn't get wasted. We're at 2 cups. Let me empty this real quick. And then yesterday when I was out there, I brought in a huge basket of tomatoes and peppers, and it hadn't rained in a little bit since our last rainstorm. This has been a very, very dry season. It has been so incredibly dry. And since I had so much coming in from the garden, I was not watering anymore. I just didn't have any more time to go out there and water my garden and preserve stuff. So I chose preserving the food that I got over that. So I really didn't expect to get much more produce. And the plants have all new tomatoes and peppers, little babies growing, and they gave me a bunch yesterday. And then of course we got 1.5 inches of rain last night. So feast or famine. Maybe I'll get some more produce before they really peter out. But I am gonna have to get out there and start cleaning up that garden. We started our school back up, and we've only been doing half days, which is what I like to do in August, just to bring us out of that total spontaneous, unplanned day that we ended up in. And now we're building back our structured days, and starting next week, we'll be doing our full days. I have not been baking bread, knowing going into summer that just managing sourdough stuff was just not gonna be on my priority list. I had used up the last of it, and I'm gonna be making some new sourdough so that we can have some yummy, delicious sourdough bread over the fall, winter, spring. And I don't always use sourdough to make my bread. Sometimes I make different types of bread that don't use sourdough. So it really just depends on my mood of what I'm making. But there is nothing like a rustic sourdough loaf to go with your dinner. That is yum, yum, yum. My kids went through the calendar. They planned our daily dinner categories for this year, which I like to have them do because it involves them in some of the decision making for weeknight dinners, even weekend dinners when we're not out and about. If we don't have a party, or in the winter there's a lot of holiday dinner things. Sometimes we have lots of events going on, just depends on the month. But yes, when we're home, we don't really choose to go out to eat, we just make our own meals. For me, it makes my nights a lot easier because I just look at the category and go, I need to pick a meal that suits this category, and it's just so much easier to come up with. I will bring out a video soon about how we're getting back into our structured days, our routines, and show you some of the fun things that we're doing with that. And that is almost I think if I cut this up, I'll be good. That is 6 cups. Guess I should have read the directions. I need to not add the chicken first. So I got it chopped up. I have a big stock pot for it, but first we need to do the vegetables. So I'm gonna get another pot out, my bad, so that I can get the first ingredients ready before we add the chicken. We're gonna be adding 6 tablespoons of butter because we're doubling the recipe and it calls for 3 tablespoons of butter. And then we need onion. Move my knife over there. So while I'm chopping this onion up, which we're going to need 3 cups of, I wanted to talk to you about the challenge. I thought this was really great. It was perfect timing for me because my garden was exploding and I was gonna have to do something with all this produce, and had I not forced myself, some days I really had a lot going on and I was tired. The last thing I wanted to think of was preserving something, but I did it anyway, and I'm so glad that I did because I wasted nothing from my garden. And I feel like maybe had I not forced myself to do something every day, I would have either had days where I was longer days and getting maybe less desirable things done for us. For example, some of the days I froze things to make it a little easier on me because I was doing a lot of different recipes. And I think if I hadn't said to myself that I want to do this recipe, so I need to at least put this away today or dehydrate this, I think I would have had more freezer stuff and less prepared meals because I would have been pushing so much into one day. I wouldn't have been able to have time to do all the recipes I wanted so quickly. I thought that was really great because I got a lot of my stuff made already, and even though my preserving is not going to stop after August, I will not be able to do it every day. I will be squeezing it in when I have time or when I have extra time. So I'm glad I got a lot done already and that I met a lot of my goals, because I talked about that in my preparing for the challenge, that I made a list of all the recipes I needed to do, wanted to do, what to do when I had an abundance of certain produce. Some of the peppers that I grew, I made notes about what I wanted to do with the different types. So when they started coming in, I knew exactly what I was doing. It wasn't searching to find everything. I got the produce from the garden. I made what I needed. And I also spent very little money. I had already stocked up on jars, canning supplies, and I have a pretty well-established working pantry. So when all this produce started coming in, I don't even think I spent $20 to get all of this made, minus this week where I did buy some meat here and there to make these meals. Overall, a lot of the things that I used, I already had, so it wasn't hard to afford to make all this stuff in 1 month like I did, which I also thought was just such a great opportunity for me. Perfect. Okay, so I put my 3 cups of onion in here, and I'm gonna get 6 tablespoons of butter. It does call for mushrooms, so if you want slicer chopped mushrooms in your chicken stew, you are more than welcome to do that. I think it's a half cup. It's a half cup. But I don't want mushrooms in this. It's not what I would prefer to eat it in, so I'm just going to omit putting that in, and we are gonna get this cooking. We're also gonna need 3 cups of diced carrots, so while the onions are heating up, I'm gonna throw some carrots in here to try and get them chopped up really well. All right, awesome. We'll measure that and see how much that is. That is 2 cups. Okay, I'm gonna bring this over to our pot. Before I scrubbed these potatoes really good, and now I'm gonna chop them up pretty good. And we want 2 cups of potatoes. We have some caramelization going on in here, so I wanna get this. Here is 2 cups of carrots, we need 1 more. Here's another cup, 2 cups of potatoes, 1 cup of celery, which I already had chopped and frozen in the fridge, so this is gonna need to warm up. And in lieu of sliced or chopped mushrooms, we're gonna add in corn, so we need 1 cup of corn. Because this isn't a water bathing recipe, we don't have to worry about acidity. And I'm comfortable doing this because a lot of recipes call for corn in them, especially soups, and the processing time is very close to each other, and because there's chicken in here, it's already a full length processing time. So this will be completely fine going in. Now that we have all this mixed in, we're going to add our broth and spices so that they can simmer. So we need 10 cups of water, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And if I had not just run out of my chicken bouillon, better than bouillon chicken flavoring, I would have added some to this because it does say that you can substitute with chicken broth, but I'm all out, so we'll have to go with that. We're gonna add 2 cups of Pinot Grigio. Two teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of thyme, and 1 teaspoon of pepper. We're gonna stir this up and then put 2 bay leaves on top and let this simmer for 10 minutes. I am gonna find the bay leaf out of here because this has been simmering and it is good now. We're gonna add all our chicken that we cut up. We're gonna add 1 cup of peas and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I'm gonna give this a good stir and then we're gonna get this jarred up. This smells so good. On a nice cold day, this is gonna feel so nice to eat. It can warm you right up and be very tasty. So we're gonna get these jars filled. We want 1-inch headspace. And in case you're wondering, you do not cook the chicken. You're just getting it into the hot broth, and then the canning, the pressure canning, will cook the chicken. think I'm gonna use a strainer spoon to get some out so that I can kind of have it divvied between the jars really good. Because this one I feel like doesn't have much chicken in it now. Let's kind of disperse that a little bit better. Okay, now I'm gonna debubble and check my headspace. And I'm gonna use vinegar to clean my jars, and remember that there's raw chicken in here, so this liquid is not, it's contaminated with raw chicken. So lots of hand washing and keeping things as clean as you can. All right, I'm gonna get my lids and bands on. We are at 11 pounds of pressure, so we are going to put our timer on for 1 hour and 15 minutes so these pints can properly process.